Hey guys, and welcome to Kai Dragon Gardening and Cooking channel. Today we're going to talk about a very, very serious subject. Different types of gardening you can do. I've heard a lot of people say, well, I live in a small apartment, or I don't know if my yard's good enough for it. But here's the thing with it. There are so many ways to garden that it is impressive what you can do. So today I'm going to show you some amazing things that you can do. We're going to kind of start with the basics. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons. Then we're going to move on to the next tier, and we're going to kind of talk about them, the pros and cons, the cost, and kind of evaluate this. Every place is different and subject to what you can do, what your HOA may allow, what your apartment may allow, but everybody can be a gardener. It's just a matter of the size, how much you want to do, and believe me, the food tastes fantastic. So let's get into it. All right, so this is the very first topic we were talking about. You can sow it in ground. The sow it in ground, you have usually natural fertile soil, depending on how many earthworms you've had over the years. A lot of people call it virgin ground, where stuff has never grown except weeds. However, sometimes the soil can be too acidic, sometimes it can be too alkaline. This is where you want to go ahead and check your soil. Usually get a soil test, see where your soil sits at, what kind of nutrients it has. But let's just say it's very neutral. You can pretty much grow a lot of different stuff here. Some plants will require more of an acidic, which is more like 6.5, 6. Tomatoes, peppers, they love it a little bit more acidic. If you're doing blueberries, you have to be really acidic, so 5, 4.5, kind of around that sweet spot. So it just depends on where your grow location is. And so for the purpose of this, we're just going to say everything qualifies. The nice thing with the garden here is we can grow everything out, let it go wild, and the only thing we have to really worry about is Bermuda, general weeds we have to pull, and that is one downside to just putting it in the ground. Weeds are more uncontained. They can spread very easy. So for example, as we come closer to here, this ground here I sowed a lot of beets, and I've also sowed beets here. As you can see, the Bermuda here and other grass is starting to come up and try to take over. These are brand new beets right here. And the other downside, if you zoom in a little closer here, you'll see there's animal prints, which means we have a cat or a raccoon or a squirrel, something trampling on the ground. So that is one problem you have. As you can see, even with the corn, we've had critters run through our corn. There's not a lot I can do with it. I can use animal hunting spray that repels rabbits and squirrels and everything, and you usually get that like I've seen it at Academy Sports, I've seen it at Lowe's. They usually call it like liquid fence. It's basically a way to repel it, but the problem is you have a lot more problems with nature. It's unpredictable what you're going to see. Here we've also done vertical gardening, so we've contained our watermelon in one location. That way it will grow up. It'll grow up on the fence here. You'll still get some down here on the ground, but the purpose of it is to grow watermelon and cantaloupe right through all these trellises. That way you have much easier time harvesting, because if you haven't seen watermelon before, they can go out 8-10 feet vines and they can take over this whole ground. But if you're trying to maintain a certain order of vegetables and fruit, it's good to do vertical here. You will have a lot of uncontrolled weeds that you're gonna have to pull, so you're gonna have to get a hand tiller and dig it up by hand, and then typically shake the weeds off and then throw them away, or you can throw them in your composter. I haven't had near as many problems this year, but as you see where the beets are, which right here is our brand new beets that we sowed. We've already got some invaders here, and you have to pull the weeds up to the root. The other downside with this, if you're in a lowland, you can get more flooding. So you're going to have to do a little bit of terraforming, kind of figure out how you want to get the water to drain. So there's a lot of things to consider when going in ground. Second option you have is you can do grow bags. So for example, grow bags are a great way to grow potatoes, onions, carrots, things of that nature. And in this example, we've done some potatoes here. We've also done some beets in this one, and my family loves beets. There's not much I can say on that. So this is a great way to start. You can put this on your patio. You can put this out on your balcony. There's a lot of nice ways you can do this stuff. It's easy, just costs a little bit of dirt, fertilizer. This is probably the cheapest method you can do in gardening here, or even use a simple 5-gallon bucket, drilling holes on the sides here or under here. That way water comes out. But there's also ways to make it, which will be in another video at some point, self-wicking, where you can fill this up with water and it feeds up to the soil. Alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about, minding the pear tree, because squirrels are enjoying throwing pears. Are you up there? Are you getting ready to throw one at me? Okay, he's not throwing anything at me right now. So that's the only curse of having a fruit tree. You get squirrels that get really crazy and start tossing these at you while you're working. So this is another example of a grow bed. This is about 1 foot tall, and we did design this to go around the tree, bring in pollinators, as well as just make the area look nice as we're slowly changing this landscape around here and making pretty much this whole area into a garden producing area. The nice thing with this is the grow beds themselves are cheap enough. I think we paid $55 for this. They last a while, probably 4 or 5 years, depending on how well it's built. Some mileage may vary depending on what kind of product you buy. We got a lot of ours from Amazon. The nice thing with this is you can control the soil. Most plants will not go all the way down into the normal soil, and they'll maintain ecosphere up here. So you can kind of control. So if you have a lot of acidic soil, for example, you may want to do grow beds to help balance out the pH if there's just too much acid in your soil. You can kind of look at what you can do. The other nice thing about this is I know what's in here. There's very few chance of weeds. You will get weeds still. Unfortunately, weeds turn to seeds, they'll blow, you're still gonna get weeds, but you have a lot more manageability. And it's also easier, depending on how tall you get it, you can sit down and you can pull weeds. And, for example, we just grew beets here. My family loves beets, so this is a great example of an idea you can do with a tree. And of course, we used a wrap that you can get. This is like coconut coir that you can just wrap around the tree, make it look nice. We're going to talk about a couple more examples of grow beds that you can do. So for example, you still see another circle here. That's without the tree. This has a lot of different plants in it for pollinators. But you also have, in our previous video where we had carrots, we went ahead and planted carrots here, and you get a nice oval shape. This is a 6x3, and they come in all different sizes. So you can get a 4x4, you can get a 4x2, you can get a 6x2. There's all different sizes that you can come up with. So it's up to your imagination on how you want to shape your garden. That's the cool part. We decided to do an L shape here, and then put the thing in the center here along with the blueberries, and that's kind of what we've had to do, but it's worked out really well, and I'm very pleased with that. And like I was talking about acidity, blueberries here are one that loves acidic soil. So this is a fresh plant we put in the ground. Rescue we're trying to do, we got shade cloth here to try to help reduce the amount of sun it gets, but you do have to constantly maintain the acidity here. But on the nice side of that, I can still have neutral soil up here that's not going to affect the stuff down here. You can still probably get most of this stuff, probably $55 80 bucks per bed or less. Sometimes you can find really good bargains, but one thing I stress on everybody, read the ratings if you're going through Amazon, because sometimes you will get bad beds. So it's best to look at how many ratings people get. A lot of my stuff comes from Amazon just because of price, such as like this ag fabric here, which is shade cloth, which we'll discuss this in another video. But if you are in climates that are very hot, I highly recommend this. This is a 30-70, which means it blocks 30% of the sun. So on those hot days when it hits 100 and there's no shade, this will absorb 30% of that sun, which will help these other plants still thrive and not shut down. This is a home-built raised garden bed that me and my stepdad put together, and it was awesome. We had a great time doing this. We were able to build, for these pre-COVID prices, for about $100 a piece. And this is just corrugated metal. We used 2x4s down in here to build a box, and then we used 4x4 posts right here, and that's all we did. There's the bottom. Why I like these beds is you can put a lot of soil in here. You can do something called hugelkultur, which is also putting logs in the bottom here, your compost, every big pieces of wood, not just logs really, you can put branches in, all that. Over time, that soil is going to break down. Sticks are going to break down with that soil and make the soil even more fertile. And also the nice thing about wood is it retains water. So under here, there's more chance that the ground is going to suck that water up from the logs, sticks, anything that you have in it. So it's good to have. COVID prices, this was probably about $100 a piece. I do not know what it's going to cost today on the price wise, so be alert on that. But there's a lot of different cool designs you can do. We went the cheapest route. This probably will hold us for 5-8 years or more. It just depends how much the wood that we have rots. The other option you can do, it's more costly, is build the box on the outside and then just do the corrugated metal on the inside. So there's different ways you can do it, but it's ultimately kind of what your expenses are, what you want. The other costly thing about it is importing soil. So I bought a lot of my soil from a farmer that had a lot of compost and very, very fine soil. We wanted loose, loamy soil mixed with compost. Fantastic job, but for 4 beds, it cost me about $600 for dirt. And that doesn't include just getting the logs and sawdust from the lumber store that I got. Is it worth it? Yes. You can work on stuff from the from standing. You can sit on a chair and work on it. So this is great for people that are older with bad backs. And you keep the pests out, typically, except for insects. You got rabbits, you got other things, or even dachshunds. For example, this little fella here, he likes to explore the smaller garden beds to let me know what things are going on in there. But with these nice tall ones, he's not going to get in here. So if you have dogs, this is a great way to keep dogs out. Cats, you're still going to get them to jump, but a lot of times cats won't jump in there if you use certain things to repel them. But like I said, this little guy here, he's not going to get in this bed, but the smaller ones, he could climb in if he wanted to. If you're looking for some of the more inexpensive ways to grow, we haven't forgot about that, but we have to venture through our beautiful, beautiful garden to go all the way to the other sector where we can cover all the other options you have. So, come follow me. All right, so We're not quite in the food producing section yet. We haven't hit that grocery store aisle yet, but we will soon. This is where we get all our pollinators. You can still grow stuff in pots. Old school tradition. This is something that you can grow small plants, large plants. It doesn't matter. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Some are long, some are massive, some are heavy, some are skinny. There is so much you can do, and as we look around on the camera, you can see all the different shapes and sizes that you can get for pots, which, if you're new to garden and you just want to experiment, this is a great option, cheap option, but you're going to be limited on space. But this is probably the cheapest cost you can get. We got this for $20, and this is with inflation prices. I remember when we were paying $10 for these, but we put just standard soil in there, put our seeds in, went to town. There is a drawback with these though. They get hot very quickly. So if you have a hot area, they're going to need shade, or they're going to need water. And the reason I say it, you can put straw inside here to help reduce the water loss, but the sides are still going to heat up in the sun. So that's one thing you want to consider with that. Second is you don't get any really good benefit like worms coming into these, because there's no place for them to come into. So you're always going to have to remix and refertilize the soil every year. A lot of raised beds you'll have to refertilize every year, but if you have an abundance of worms that hang out in the beds, especially red wigglers, as long as you have stuff in there, you're going to have all sorts of fertile ground. Here's where we built some shelves. My stepdad assembled all these shelves together out of metal. So we're not really including that, but this hopefully will give you an option. We just use wood. But these come in all different shapes of pots, sizes. We have a lot of our herbs growing here. There's still a lot of shade in this side. So for example, we have oregano, we have mint, we have more mint, we have stevia, great by the way, a great substitute for sugar. We have dill, we have chives, we have, I think, beets and some other stuff we're growing in here as an experiment. We also got stackable planters, which is great if you want to do vertical gardening as well. There's all sorts of types here, and they do weigh quite a bit still, even with the dirt. Now, it's not like it's super heavy, but they are still, with this much dirt, resistant to a little bit of the wind. If you're in a windy area, you just slide in, stack, and go, and you can do almost like a waterfall and get the water to roll. We're probably going to replace these much sooner in the every few seasons probably, because depending if you take your pots in at the end of the year, weather will weaken the plastic. That is a downside to it. You can also get ceramic, you can also get metal. We have some antique ones here, for example, that are ceramic, do very well. We also have some ones that are wood. You can have a lot of different options on how to grow, and they can produce food. It's all about location, how much water they get, food, and sunlight. Too much sun can be bad, too much heat can be bad. But everything can pretty much thrive even in these big planters, except for trees. I mean, we're not going to include trees, but we're talking your standard vegetables, your standard fruits. A lot of this stuff will survive. You can also get dwarf mini lime and lemon trees, which of course they're only going to get probably about this tall, but they're going to produce a small amount of lemons and limes throughout the season once they get more and more established. Downside, depending on your climate, you will have to bring them in. You can also check a lot of your nurseries for, and they call them like dwarf cherry trees, stuff like that, where they're only about 4 foot tall. So if you wanted to put stuff in the ground, you could. There's alternative to the full-grown like pear trees that you saw. But yeah, garden has a lot of options, so it can fit anybody's price range. It's just all it takes is a little bit of time, and sometimes just a packet of seeds and some work. But it's rewarding, and the nice thing about it, when it comes harvest time, you got these beautiful tomatoes, plants, whatever you want, and fantastic. All right, so that concludes everything. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions, comment down below. Appreciate you, and thanks again. See you next time.